Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so happy to have you all here on our fifth Saturday gathering on the cloud. I'm Kim Arneson. I'm the administrative coordinator for the Healer Within Foundation, and I will be introducing the program and our presenter for our fifth Saturday on the cloud today. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us today for these transformative teachings on understanding Alzheimer's disease, research, prevention, and reversing the progression. We also want to extend a huge thank you to our presenter, Annette, who is returning for yet another powerful fifth Saturday gathering on the cloud. We're honored and grateful to be able to welcome Annette into the space yet again. Now, today throughout the programming, you'll notice several links that will be shared in the Facebook live chats and on our Zoom chats as well. These will be links offering opportunities to subscribe for the handouts for today's programming, ways to contribute free will donations if you feel compelled, and ways to connect and continue to plug into the Healer Within Foundation's world. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Annette Franks. Annette is a certified corporate wellness coach, holistic health advisor, motivational speaker, and she's also a licensed professional counselor. She has over 40 years of experience working with individuals and organizations, including some well-known Fortune 500 companies. She conducts empowerment seminars, does corporate training, professional development programs, and has an extensive background in the field of psychology, Gestalt psychotherapy practices, energy and functional medicine, holistic healthcare modalities, medical Qigong, and Tai Chi. She has a special focus with addiction and substance abuse as well. Additionally, she is also tied into the organization as she is a Tai Chi Easy senior trainer, as well as a certified Tai Chi and Qigong teacher with IIQTC. She's a wonderful friend and a champion for the Healer Within Foundation, and we are so beyond grateful for that and to have her here today. And lastly, in support of all of our programming and the value that it may bring to your life, we invite you to open up your hearts and help us further our mission by making a free will donation for an amount that feels aligned to you. As a not-for-profit, truly every donation, no matter how big or small, makes an impact and helps propel our mission of training thousands to improve the health of millions. Again, we will be sharing these links in both the Zoom and the Facebook chats, and you are welcome to click on the link at your leisure. And now I will go ahead and turn this over to Annette. Welcome, welcome, Annette.
Thank you. I really welcome this opportunity to be a part of the Healer Within Foundation and to be a part of the fifth Saturdays gatherings on the cloud. And I'd like to welcome everybody who's out there with us today. Today we're going to look at the brain disease of Alzheimer's, and what I believe is, and science and research is now showing us, this is an escalating global health crisis. And this is a really opportunity. In layman's terms, I put together a package that can really help everyone, really understand this more, because I really believe in proactive participation. So my goal, and hopefully you have a package of materials. If you sign up with the Healer Within Foundation, you can get the materials that we put together that has almost everything that I'm going to speak about. And I tried to put together a package that gives us not only the education and the understanding, but resource links and empowerment tools of how to really create lifestyles that can prevent and reverse what we know to be cognitive decline. And Alzheimer's, we hear a lot, people interchange these words, but Alzheimer's is a brain disease. It's a progressive brain disorder that impacts memory, thinking, language, and the ability to carry out simple tasks. And we'll look really clearly what that looks like. But Alzheimer's is one form of dementia, and dementia is not really a disease. It's considered a disorder that as we get older, our mind begins to slow the processes down. And some people, when they leave the earth, have very clarity of vision and they're not very much impacted by dementia. But a lot of people, and we're seeing it more and more and more, that a lot of people are being impacted by Alzheimer's, which is a more rapid deterioration of the brain. And I want you to understand that. So dementia has many forms. Alzheimer's, which is what we're focusing on today, is the number one form of dementia. And dementia is, like I said, a set of symptoms that, as we get older, our brain begins to slow down if we're not really using it in ways that keep it alive and engaged. And we're going to look at, though, Alzheimer's and what all that really means, so we have a better gut understanding. So we do know that, one of the things I like to say about Alzheimer's is it's a brain disease that robs us from ourselves. In time, we see our bodies, but we don't know who we are. It affects, the research is targeting, it affects all parts of the brain, but the major parts of the brain that it affects is our episodic memory, which is our ability to hear information, remember information, and recall it or retrieve it later. It also affects our executive functioning, where that's our planning and getting organized and having a dinner party and getting dressed in the morning, knowing what we're going to do that day and what to wear. And then it also affects our processing speed and how fast we do things. And the brain disease of Alzheimer's, it speeds up all of the decline in those three major areas of the brain. And it's rapidly increasing in the United States. And I think this is what we need to really pay attention to. We know that the changes in the brain for Alzheimer's start approximately 20 years before we even start to see some of the mild cognitive impairment in the early stages. And we also know through research today that lifestyle can help slow that down and help us stay more alert and slow down the progression of both, dementia and Alzheimer's, if we pay attention early on in our life. And, what happens with so many people is they wait until the symptoms are obvious to the world. And then there comes a place in time where they're not making that connection, or they're starting to protect it. The world out there can see that that person isn't operating the way they used to. But what we see with so many people, and if you're around the aging population, they begin to kind of make excuses or not show up as much. Some people will isolate because they don't want the world to know something's not right, and they don't quite understand something's not right until they don't know that they don't know. And they're left with the presence of physical, but their mind is not processing right. And I'm hoping by the end of this class today, we not only understand it better in our gut, because I do believe that education, knowledge is power, and proactive participation early in our lives can really help slow this process down, not just for the world, but for ourselves and people around us. But I want to start with a little bit of history first, because this is why it's become a global health crisis. The first time that it's one of the reasons why it's getting out of control, because we really haven't been educating ourselves as much as we needed to. So from a real quick historical perspective, and one of my favorite websites that's really educational and empowering, it's in your handouts, is the Alzheimer's Association's website, alz.org, alz.org. And from looking at this from a historical perspective, in 1906, Dr. Alzheimer's, which is where we got this name, Alzheimer's, he first described this peculiar disease that was different from the aging process, the normal aging process. And in 1910, we named it Alzheimer's disease, but then we didn't really do anything about it. We just kind of left it be. And in 1974, you're talking decades later, the National Institute on Aging was founded as one of our national institutes of health. And then in 1976, we recognized that Alzheimer's itself was the most common form of dementia. And in 1980, we founded the Alzheimer's Association. And then in 84 and 86, we started to identify the beta amyloid and the tau protein, which are very much connected. And I'll explain them in a little bit with this particular form of dementia. Alzheimer's is what's going on in the brain. We didn't discover until 1987, the first deterministic gene. And we spent a lot of research looking at that, which definitely, if you inherit that, we know that you're going to get Alzheimer's. And we don't know how to prevent that. It's a pretty powerful, you'll see it. You've probably seen TV specials that talk about it. And you'll see people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s with that. It usually runs in families. And it's very sad because it robs people even younger, genetically wired with this gene. It robs them of their life at a much, much earlier age than the general population. And then in 1993, we identified the first gene that was a risk factor for Alzheimer's. And what I want to say about that is that typically does run in families. And if it's in your family, all the more reason to pay attention to this, because if you get the genetic risk factor gene, it doesn't mean you're going to get Alzheimer's, because what we now know through research is that lifestyle interventions, Qigong and Tai Chi, and a lot of the other principles I'm going to talk about towards the end of the lecture, we have so much more power over the onset or reversing and slowing down this process. It doesn't mean because it's in our family we're going to get it unless we have the deterministic gene. But if it's a family, the risk factor gene that's identified, it means we are potentially at risk, but we don't have to have it, and lifestyle has a lot to do with it. If you watched my Radiant Health Mindful Living that we did through the Healer Within Foundation, and it's on their website or it's on their Facebook page, Radiant Health Mindful Living, we talked a lot about the principles of functional medicine in that class. And those principles, and we talked more in depth that time than we will today just because of time, but those principles are vital in slowing this down. And I'll weave all of that together in a minute. But in 2003, we started, which is in, the 2000s, we started the Alzheimer's disease study began. And then in 2009, we started to really look at biomarkers, what predicts. And by 2010, this had advanced to the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And when COVID hit the ranks in 2020 and 2021, it bumped back down to the 7th leading cause of death. But this is, like I said, there is truly an escalating global health crisis because more and more people get this every month and every year and die of Alzheimer's than breast cancer and prostate cancer put together. So our statistics are huge, but our research and medical solutions to this are way behind. And this is why our lifestyle interventions and the mission behind the Healing Within Foundation and all the work of Dr. Yonka in the Healing Within book and the Healing Power of Chi, which all those resources are in your handouts also. All of that work and these practices are really vital because we don't have, if we fast track this and keep looking at this timeline, we don't have good medical solutions. We have new criteria that was developed about 11 years ago in 2011. In 2014, we realized that the rates were much higher for Alzheimer's taking people out, the death rate, than what we previously had thought. By 2014, we had several medications on the market that didn't, this is, people call it Alzheimer's meds. They didn't treat Alzheimer's. They treated symptoms, but we had nothing on the market in terms of medications that treated Alzheimer's itself. We are way behind. And now, fortunately, the National Institutes of Health, we spend almost $3 billion a year in research. And that's a current statistic in trying to understand all of this. And just in 2021, there was an accelerated approval of a treatment drug approved called aducanumab. And it's out there and it goes after, we'll talk about this in a minute, but the beta amyloid, the plaque in the brain, it kind of helps slow that down and take some of that away, which is part of Alzheimer's. But it's a new drug. 2021, just released. And there's lots of side effects. And if you really study the drug, and I encourage you on the alzheimers.org, they talk about it. It's not a pill. You know, we're used to, if we have depression, we can take an antidepressant and we can take our pills regularly every morning. And there's some really good evidence-based medications out there for a lot of what we struggle with in America, but we don't have that for Alzheimer's yet. The way that this drug is administered, number one, they want to, it's a brand new, kind of fast-tracked, put out there. And yes, it does target some of the regions, the way the brain accelerates itself with Alzheimer's. However, it's not a pill. It's intravenously given every 4 to 6 weeks. Takes an hour, almost an hour to administer that. So there's huge medical costs. And in order to get that, they want people who are in mild cognitive impairment. Well, if you understand, and we're going to go over those symptoms in a minute, you understand what that is. A lot of people kind of write all that off as stress or change or whatever. So the real reality of what's happening is, from a medical perspective, we're putting lots of money into research, but we haven't got yet an answer from a medical perspective that's really keeping up with the rise and the acceleration of people developing Alzheimer's. So it's kind of scary what's happening. And I don't mean to make people be afraid, but I want to say we need to pay attention to this. That's why, again, I welcome the Healer Within Foundation to honor this educational program today, and to administer the handouts to help give people lots of resources that help us be more proactive in our own lifestyle choices. And if we're a Qigong and Tai Chi practitioner or a Qigong and Tai Chi teacher, these practices are so important as a part of this healthy lifestyle that helps us keep our brain upright and mobile, our balance, knowing who we are and who you are longer. So, and again, I'm going to talk more as we go on, but I want the world to hear that from a medical profession, we don't have a lot of good answers yet, except through functional medicine, which is lifestyle interventions, which we're going to address. So we know that right now, over 6.5 million people, or Americans are living with Alzheimer's, and almost 2/3 of those are women. We know that by 2025, it's projected to reach over 7.2 million people. And by 2060, we estimate close to 14 million people in the country. What's happening is, if you look at numbers, and if you're in a room with 3 people, if you know, most people we're trying to take care of ourselves to live to the age of 85. Well, if you take 3 people who are at the age of 85 and you put them in a room, we know for sure that one is not going to know themselves because they've got Alzheimer's. We know that the second one is going to be exhausted because they are taking care of someone with Alzheimer's. Okay, because we don't have a lot of quality care for this. Anybody that's put anybody in memory care knows that it is hugely expensive in the healthcare world, and it's a lot of out-of-pocket costs, and most people can't afford it. So what does that mean? It is families trying to give care to these patients, and often elderly people themselves. So you've got one with it, one exhausted by it, and that leaves somebody that cognitive functioning is pretty good, but who are their friends? Who are their friends? Okay, we're seeing a collapse in what's happening. One of the most horrific statistic research has put out, and this is, I think it's even more now than what I'm going to tell you, but we've been focusing for years on cardio health. And since the year 2000, what we've done is phenomenal, but what we've done is, and I love this, we've decreased our statistics around heart health. We've really improved by like 14%. We're getting better. We're improving our heart health. But since the year 2000, and some research is saying now over 90%, but at least we have progressed 89% in the rates of Alzheimer's. I'm going to say that again. Since 2000, we're focusing on heart health, and we've decreased our heart statistics. We've improved by 14% in heart health, which means we're going to stay alive longer. But we've decreased our heart problems, but we've increased by over 89% our rate of cognitive decline in the form of Alzheimer's. So we're going to live longer with better hearts, but we're not going to know who we are, who's around us. So we need to be very proactive and kind of wake up. If I say we need to wake up to, wow, decades before we reach our last third of our life, we need to be more proactive in what that looks like. And I'm going to talk about what that looks like, but really pay attention, because not only the disease itself, but the caregivers are collapsing. So it's robbing people from knowing themselves, and it's exhausting people trying to do the care. We got a pretty big problem. And, I always like to say, we live our life in thirds, 1 through 30. Okay, it's the first, we're growing, we're learning, we're empowering ourselves. 30 to 60, we're in our careers and, trying to really define who we are more fully and our plans and our goals. And the last 30 years should be this beautiful part of resting and savoring all that we have created in the second 30 years. And like I said, if you look at what's happening in the last third of it, we're getting more and more, not just health problems, but cognitive decline and Alzheimer's, more rapid than is normal. And we'll look at some of those factors. We know that caregivers provided almost $250 billion, if not more than that at this point, in unpaid health care to people with this. It's pretty much a pretty big statistic. And as I said, 1 in 3 seniors die of Alzheimer's or another form, and that it's killing more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer. And these things that I'm going to share with you right now, they're in your packet. This particular handout's put out by the Alzheimer's, the ALZFDN organization. It's the caregivers, and it's a thing of symptoms, and it's in your packet. But I just want to talk about it a little bit so we know what we're dealing with. And then we're going to talk about how the brain works and why this is happening from a science perspective. But while everybody's a little bit unique, we know that some of the common warning signs of this disease is memory loss, confusion about time and place, struggling to complete familiar tasks, trouble finding appropriate words in the middle of a sentence or the beginning of a sentence, difficulty in judging situations, and changes in mood and personality. For some people, they just kind of, no big deal, write it off. But this stuff left unattended will progressively get worse. In the early stages, we see people forgetting words and misplacing objects. They forget what they've read. They'll ask the same question over and over. They have increasing trouble making plans or organizing things. They don't remember names or people when meeting new people, sometimes people they know. As the disease progresses, there's more memory loss, more confusion, problems recognizing family and friends, continually repeating stories or favorite things or favorite wants, foods, places, songs, or repetitive motions. There's a decreased ability to perform complex tasks. That's that executive functioning of the brain starting to go. Often a loss of concern for hygiene and appearance. They require assistance in the middle stages in choosing proper clothing, what to wear that day, where they're going, where they've been. There's lots of memory losses. And in the late stage, the severe stages, we see there's almost a total memory loss. They might recognize a face, but they don't know names. They might mistake people for someone else. Sometimes their thinking sometimes becomes delusional. Things that they might believe happened didn't, or they might think they need to go to work when they retired 20 years ago. But they have distorted types of thinking Many have a strong need to hold something close for tactile stimulation, nurturing, companionship, comfort. So it's like the brain's not working, but the body is seeking that comfort, care, to hang on to things. And basic abilities such as eating, walking, sitting up fade during this period. And the individual may no longer recognize when he's thirsty or hungry. They really need care for all of their basic living. Lots of times it affects people's swallowing, their ability throughout the disease as it progresses to walk, to move. Again, why we do all of the Qigong and Tai Chi practices to keep us upright and mobile and strong and focused. And the practices, especially Tai Chi, forces our brain to learn new movements. But as the disease progresses, like I say, my thing I like to say is it robs people of themselves. And I've worked with so many people in my clinical practice, they're scared. They saw it happen to their parents or their mother or their father, and they're like, is that going to happen to me? And they start to then become afraid of what they know. And my working with people is to really teach them to be proactive in their own lifestyle. Some great books out there, and these are on your in your materials, is The Alzheimer Solution by Dean and Aisha Sherzai, medical MDs. The End of Alzheimer's by Dr. Dale Bredesen, and he's got great stuff and videos. I love for caregivers, especially the 36-hour day, it's a family guide. It's an old book, but it's just one of the best books for people to understand what is happening and how to help people. But it's called the 36-hour day, and it's a family guide to caring for people who have Alzheimer's disease and related dementias and memory loss. And it's by Nancy Mace and Peter Rabins, and very, very, very good book. It's one of my favorite, even though there's lots of great stuff out there. I really recommend it as help. So let me talk about a little bit, I'll try to do it for layman's purposes, what happens in our brains. So you're listening to me, one, in a beta mode. That's an educational mode. And, we stimulate our brain through that. But what happens, we know that heart health and gut health and food and nutrition, we know today that kind of stuff is really playing a major role. And we know why and what's a lot of what's going on. But I want to talk about gut and brain health. So if you think of the brain as the beautiful, big, huge branches of a huge, let's say an oak tree, a very mature oak tree, and its trunk and the roots of that is our gut. Okay, the soil, if you see the tree out there, the soil, it's rooted deeply in the soil and it pulls up all the nutrients from the soil. And what happens is when that occurs, it gets bigger every year, it gets better, it grows more and more branches because it's rooted in good nutrition and good soil, which is where the minerals come from. Well, in our brain, we've now connected that the health of the brain is determined more often by the health of the gut. So that tree trunk rests in our gut, and it gets the amino acids from the foods we eat, the breakdown of the neurotransmitters. It gets that from the foods that we eat, and it feeds all of those branches. Well, just like a tree with the aging process, over time, the branch might lose itself or something fall off. Or if you're an arborist, you prune trees and they get stronger. And the brain continues to grow. And over time, just like a beautiful oak tree, winds will take out a few of the branches, but it's still beautiful and it's still functioning. And our brains are very similar. We can lose some branches, we can have some mild cognitive decline, and we can still be fully present and upright and mobile. What's happening with Alzheimer's is there is beta amyloid plaque and that's starting to build up in the brain, and it starts to gunk up those branches. And like in our brain, we have over 100 billion neurons in our brain, and with over 100 trillion synapses occurring. It's how things talk to each other. And in our brains, that stuff connects and helps us move forward, backwards, make decisions, executive functioning, remember. But with Alzheimer's, what's happening is there's like a protein misfolding occurring and a buildup of beta amyloid plaque, which then in turn, instead of the connections and the neuronal pathways and the neurotransmission, plaque gets built up. And then what's occurring is we're getting some tau tangles. And it's like taking a railroad track, gunking it all up and turning it around, twisting it around. In time, that train can't go through there. And it's not going to receive the right kind of energy, or that tree's not going to grow properly. And the same thing's happening in our brain. And we're seeing more and more today through research that there's an acceleration at not a normal rate that's occurring among individuals of this buildup of beta amyloid plaque and tau tangles occurring. So like I say, we look okay, but we can't get the words out, or we know we want to reach for that glass, but we can't. There's a neuromuscular interface between our brain and moving and reaching, and we can't get it. It doesn't work. And so what we're seeing is that nutrition is playing a huge role. A lot of the research is coming out. They didn't understand, why is Alzheimer's getting worse statistically? With, our lifestyles should be getting better, our lives should be getting easier, but there's lots of lifestyle factors that are affecting this. And we're seeing that a lot of it's rooted in improper gut health. And it's really affecting the deterioration of the brain. There's glia cells in our gut, and the only other place the glia cells are in our brain. And we've always known there's glia cells in the brain, but it's been in more recent years, if you look at long-term research, where we realize there are glia cells in the gut, and it is the foods we put in our body that talks to those glia cells in the gut that then send the right kinds of neurotransmission up to the brain. And I'll explain a little bit more about that, but I need to say, which is why I put in your packet, just a simple 2-page checklist. There's so much more that we can be doing, but I wanted people to see some of the things that just in a mini scale of how there is a direct correlation between genetically modified foods, gut health, and brain health. And in your packet also, there's wonderful resources on food and the blood sugar solution by Dr. Mark Hyman, who was the head of the Cleveland Clinic functional medicine. And most people have heard the name Dr. David Perlmutter and his Brain Maker and Grain Brain and the Food Revolution and Healthy at 100 and the work of John Robbins and Ocean Robbins. And these resources are in your packet. The work of Dr. Joel Kahn, Kahn, and the Whole Heart Solution, all of those things, and the plant-based solutions are really important. I call them leaders, and really helping us get our power back into our own lap, and helping educate us why nutrition is so important, not just for health, vitality, and longevity, but for brain health. One of the leaders in this was Dr. Jeffrey Smith. He wrote Seeds of Deception and Genetic Roulette, which talks a lot about the genetically modified foods and how they're really playing a role in not good gut health. But now we're seeing with the research of Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who's a MIT lead researcher at MIT, she's seeing how her work, I love her work and her research, but she's put together how the glyphosate is starting to have an impact on the glycine in the brain, and it's starting to take the place of glycine and where it fits because their structure is very similar. And over time, it's robbing the brain of healthy functioning. The glyphosate. She has her research on glyphosate toxicity and neurocognition is so important, and it's really important in helping us understand the rapid increase in Alzheimer's and also in autism. Her work is phenomenal. If you want to know more, it's Stephanie, Stephanie.Seneff.net. And she gives all of her research away. Wonderful. She wrote a book called Toxic Legacy, and it's a new book. Her research has been, it's coming to the forelight, thank heavens. But I think it's really important if people are afraid because this is in their disease. I really encourage people to be proactive in understanding how food and genetically modified foods are playing not just in our gut health, but now we're seeing why it's accelerating our brain deterioration. So they're seeing how it's increasing the beta amyloid plaque, which then in turn has a lot to do with tau tangles and the deterioration. So without going off on a tangent, it's so important to really understand we've allowed some things to happen in our country that we thought were okay, but now we're seeing through research and the acceleration of inflammation and leaky gut syndrome and Alzheimer's and autism and all kinds of neurodegenerative diseases. We're seeing how the genetically modification of foods, there's a lot of, and it's not just the genetic, but it's the glyphosate, the spray, the toxicity, the buildup over time. That's really we're now seeing more and more research that is suggesting this is not good, and this is maybe a huge culprit behind why we see, instead of better health and wellness, because I think our country has come a long way in so many great ways, but we're seeing more of a deterioration with chronic inflammation and brain disorders and neurological disorders and diabetes, and because we're not really focusing enough on the importance of healthy food. One of the things I do when I do 8-day mind body health retreats in Costa Rica, and I do them intentionally because I want people, there's not genetically modified foods in Costa Rica, and I want people to see what their body feels like after 8 days of clean, interacting, engaging with other people, being out, doing the Qigong and Tai Chi practices and dance practices and yoga practices. I want people to understand how all of these things together really can accelerate our health, vitality, and longevity. So, all right, I want to get back to a little bit about some other non-genetic risk factors. So we talked about the disease and some of the symptoms, but like I said, if you've got a family history and you've got deterministic genes, which only make up 1% of all the Alzheimer's cases. I found it interesting that we spent tons of money, while this is important, looking at that. What we really now see is we need to put tons of money in looking at the other 99% of Alzheimer's cases, because it's not from the deterministic gene, it's from the lifestyle interventions and the risk genes, which increase it if we don't really be more proactive. But non-genetic risk factors, and this is what I want you to hear, because we have power over this. We even have power over the risk genes if we inherit that. Non-genetic risk factors for Alzheimer's is age. Dementia does for some people if they're not proactive in a holistic functional medicine lifestyle where we're looking at sleep and how we relax and exercise and movement and nutrition and healthy water and clean food and knowing how to balance stress and resilience and creating healthy, interactive, engaging relationships. We know that if we're, not doing those things as we get older, we increase the onset of dementia, and for some people, Alzheimer's. So age is a risk factor. And like I said, by the time we hit 85, what we know today is at least 1 out of 3 people have it. Head injuries, there's lots of research around this, but we're knowing that athletes and people who've had serious head trauma or head injuries, it also can speed up the acceleration of cognitive decline. And there's also, like I said, there's a definite connection between heart and head and the health of our heart functioning. And that includes also heart disease, diabetes, stroke, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. All of those affect the acceleration of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So some of the other disorders that are very prevalent in America also increase the speed. And when I have clients in my office that will ask me, they're concerned about a good friend or a parent that is in their 70s or late 60s, they're concerned and I'll about some of the weird kind of odd, different, moody behaviors that isn't normal and they don't understand what's going on. I'll ask that person, were they a smoker? Do they have high blood pressure? Because sometimes, do they have diabetes? These things also will accelerate someone's cognitive decline. And those things, as we know, we've been talking about this in the functional medicine world, these are lifestyles. If we are more proactive, and Qigong and Tai Chi and the martial arts and yoga, meditation, all of those integrative mind-body practices, they're all a part of keeping ourselves healthy, upright, and mobile, knowing who we are and each other, and our brains more active and alive. And we have a lot of power over that. Smoking, obesity, depression, physical inactivity, high blood pressure, those things, and lack of certain vitamins and nutrients, those things all can play a part in accelerating cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So again, we know through research, if we're proactive in our lifestyle interventions, following the foundation of functional medicine, which looks at how we're living our life, again, through protecting our sleep, which, by the way, I'm going to be doing a class on sleep the last Saturday, the 5th Saturday in December. We're going to do another one of these educational programs. But, if you look at lifestyle principles, sleep, and how we relax, do we pause? There's push and there's pause. And I never want to stop people from pushing towards their goals, but I think what's really important is, do we pause and how do we relax? I mean, a lot of people, they just push until they collapse, or they just push and then they use alcohol or other unhealthy things to collapse them at the end of the day. And, the key is, how do we relax? And our exercise and our movement, and I want to talk about this before we actually do it in our practice today, but our integrative movement. So crossing our large muscles over our midline, which is what Tai Chi is all about, and Qigong and yoga, those things increase the brain health. They make those tree branches bigger in development. And it's like, what I love about Tai Chi is, if you can see me, it's like, I'm moving. It looks easy. People make it look easy. I don't think it's easy to learn at first, but I'm moving every part of my body in a different direction at the same time. And one foot's going this way, the other one's going that way, one hand's here, one hand's there. And while Tai Chi and Qigong practitioners make it look so elegant, the reality is it takes a lot of neurotransmission going on in the brain in order to learn those movements. Some people get that much easier. Some people, it takes them longer, but it is so important to not give up, as a clinician or a practitioner with really learning what I love to say Tai Chi movements, because it really stretches the brain and helps build cognitive reserve. Like I said, in time, if there's a branch that falls off the tree, it's still going to be beautiful if you have tons of other branches. And the neuromuscular interface for us to be able to move eloquently like we do, it's going on in the brain. And every time we learn new moves and new ways of doing it, we are literally waking up our brain and growing beautiful new trees. And that is so important in minimizing or slowing down or reversing cognitive decline. And we know that improved mental clarity and focus is definitely researched through the practices, but it also boosts our, Qigong and Tai Chi practices also boost our immune system, improve our balance and coordination. They help our mobility and range of motion. They help reduce anxiety. They help reduce symptoms of depression. They can lower our blood pressure. They can increase our lymph circulation, lower our stress responses to life, and reduce arthritis and symptoms and pain. The practices are phenomenal. A little aside, I have a home in Florida. Many people know that. And I am in a red zone in Florida, close to the water, in Punta Gorda, Florida, in the historic district. And I was there during Hurricane Ian. And the beautiful part, while I don't wish, I didn't voluntarily choose to stay. We thought I was going to Tampa, so we knew we'd get wind. So I chose to stay, but it ended up coming straight at us. It shifted at the last minute. And by the time that happened, I couldn't get out. And neither could anybody else around there. So we endured the wrath of Hurricane Ian for over 12 hours of its wrath. But the beautiful thing is, I giggle. I know these practices work because I stayed grounded. I had no anxiety. I had no fear. I just continued to stay present in the present moment. All the things that we teach in Qigong and Tai Chi practices. And I have a deep connection to God and my faith, which is also something I tap deeply into during my practices. I just used all that and literally had no fear. My house got beat up really, really bad. However, I had no fear through the process. And you come out of that, it looks like a war zone. And I felt a sadness for our community because it doesn't look anything the same. And it destroyed all my beautiful oak trees that were around my house, completely leveled them all. But the beautiful thing for us was our house was still standing, and water damage, a lot of water damage, a lot of damage, but still standing. It's just another focus, one step forward to patch it all together. But the beautiful thing, like I said, these practices that we're going to do here in a few minutes, changing that brain from beta to alpha, quelling anxiety with breath so that you stay grounded, you stay calm. And that is what these practices can give us, even in the most horrific, potentially life-threatening times that endured for hours through Ian. I did not skip a beat, and it's pretty cool. Not that I want to be tested, but it was an amazing test of inner strength. And I just know I can say these practices work. So I love continuing to give them to the world. So again, there's so much we can do when we're educated. And that's what this is about. You have a beautiful package that talks about how this is. And like I say, we know that the hallmark changes in the brain that affect this is microscopic clumps of protein fragments called beta amyloid start to build up, and then tau tangles, the twisted strands start to twist, and the brain can't communicate, and that's where the person looks there, but they can't reach or at the end drink or sometimes swallow appropriately because it's all twisted and gunked up. And the things that we're teaching today are the lifestyle interventions are things that can really help us. So I'll just speak very quickly. Again, I really encourage people to read the work of Dr. Mark Hyman, David Perlmutter, John and Ocean Robbins, Joel Kahn, Dr. Jeffrey Smith, the work of Stephanie Seneff, to really empower you. These are all leading, most are MDs or scientists, leading scholars in the field, and they are leading the way and trying to educate us. And today, within the context of the Healer Within Foundation, we're trying to do the same thing. So I'm going to, in your package, because of time, quickly go over some of the key principles, all right, of this. And it's on page 9 in your packages. But the goal here is to early on try to build cognitive reserve. First, be proactive. Many of you, if you listened to my lecture on addiction last time, I quit drinking when I was 24. I'm 64, so over 40 years ago. And after I quit drinking, I kind of woke up to wow, because I had lots of genetic stuff in my family, from not just addiction, but anxiety, depression, Lou Gehrig's, Parkinson's. I had lots of Alzheimer's. I had lots of brain disorders going on and diseases. And I'm like, wow. And I can remember consciously saying to myself, I did not get sober and arrest all of that to have my brain deteriorate in other ways. And so I have been very proactive for decades in my own health and wellness. And I think that's a really big key, no matter what age we are, being proactive. And what I want to stress again is the research says, remember, before the mild symptoms occur with Alzheimer's, the brain is starting to change 20 years before. So even though someone might be younger, oh, I don't need to worry. No, proactive participation is really important in understanding it. And there's so much beautiful research and education out there. And in the package that I'm giving you and the resources that you can go and learn on your own that are absolutely priceless. So not just our physical body care, muscular build and healthy food, but really in our brain health, organic food choices to stay away from things that were grown in, soaked in, or dried with the chemical glyphosate, because we're seeing, like I said, glyphosate toxicity builds up over time, and it's really affecting neurocognition. And there's some research suggesting at this point that it's really part of a culprit in the brain deterioration at the accelerated rate that it is, because it's not normal what's happening. It is not normal in human evolution and development what's happening. And we're trying to figure out not just what's happening, but what's the culprits. And there's many things, but we do believe that the foods that we eat play a vital part in good gut health and brain health. So really paying attention to supplementation, and the books will, with the doctors, will guide accordingly of what can help. Because like I said, a lot of the things that the gut health, a lot of foods grown in good soil pick up the selenium, the chromium, all the minerals from the earth. Well, a lot of things, especially genetically modified foods, that are grown in what we call dirt, that's not the soil that's been, rich full of the trace minerals. And so we have things that we're growing that look like food, but they're missing some of the vital trace minerals. We get the vitamin A and D and all that. We get vitamins from the sun. But we get the trace minerals from Mother Earth. And when we shifted to monoculture, monocropping, one crop, and we're not rotating the soil, and then we start to spray our chemicals on our genetically modified foods, and we genetically modify them to withstand the glyphosate, and now we're drying them in glyphosate. All of that, we believe, has been playing a major role in this acceleration. And I encourage people to learn about it. we're hearing more and more that word. 10 years ago, when I would talk about this stuff, I would ask my classes, how many have heard of the word glyphosate? And nobody had. Well, now that, there's a lot of lawsuits and a lot of stuff, we've linked it to cancers, et cetera. A lot more people are hearing about it, but we need to be really more proactive than we are if we want to take care of our brain health. Stay hydrated. Make sure that we're drinking 60 to 70 ounces of water a day. We want to stay hydrated. Toxins are released and water helps flush all that out. So hydration is vital for mental sharpness. We know that a lot of Americans are walking around dehydrated, and we know that one of the symptoms of dehydration is cloudy thinking, can't think right. And so, let that be a monitor. I walk around, I have big glasses of water, and I drink these, all day long. Hydration is important, not stuff with chemicals in it. Clear water, healthy water. Protecting our sleep. And we're going to talk about sleep and nature next time and how the brain works according to sleep. We're going to do that at the next cloud gathering, 5th Saturday in December. But the sleep is really important. And I love educating people about that whole process in nature, and it's important. But get outside, protect sleep. Okay, we need at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. And some people say they don't need that, and then they'll crank the caffeine in their body. But inappropriate sleep throughout your life, scatty sleep patterns, does affect brain health over time. So skimping on sleep is not good. I always love to say to people, sleep, it's good, it's medicine. Sleep is medicine for our soul. Maintaining balance in our life and low stress levels, developing meditative present moment practices, which is what we're going to do when we do our Qigong practices here in a few minutes. Developing the deep breathing practices, slow in to enhance our whole lung capacity. We know that vitality and health is directly correlated to our breathing practices, not just the breath in, but the breath out. And I'll talk more about that at the next 5th Saturday gathering. And then learning how to be present in the present moment. How many people are really where they are when they're there? So many people are somewhere other than where they are instead of the present moment. They're already on to the next task or the next event, or they're back in the past of what they should have done different. So many people don't live in the present moment that they're missing their life. And the present moment and the ability to be present and stay present is vital, right? So exercising, not just for cardio health, which is, our rote exercises and rowing and biking, but the integrative mind-body practices. Again, my holistic Radiant Health Mindful Living retreats in Costa Rica, we do all kinds of integrative mind-body practices, knowing that people might like Qigong better than Tai Chi, or Tai Chi better, or yoga, or dance. We do all kinds of things that wake up the brain and keep it balanced. Another really important piece in building cognitive reserve and brain health is actively building and actively participating in interactive relationships that feed our soul. People who get interested in us, that ask us about us. Dopamine is enhanced in the brain when we're looking at people, not texting, not phone calls, but being present, looking, seeing. Dopamine is increased in the brain when we have interactive quality time with people that are important to us, that support us. I'm not talking about time with people that drag us backwards or we're doing all the listening. I'm talking about interactive engagement. That increases not just our immune health and our chemicals in our brain, but it also increases our longevity in terms of health and wellness because it boosts our immune system. So also not just people invest in, but activities that we look forward to and we enjoy, and to stretch that mind with activities that stretch it. I am a professional student of life and learning. I am always pushing myself to learn something different. And, I was one of the students, a lot of people who went through that, because I'm a graduate of the IIQTC. That was really hard for me at first. My brain did not work right in those areas. It wasn't easy for me, but I pushed myself to stay with it. And I pushed myself until it became this delicious thing that I absolutely love. But, if I would have gone by what felt good, I would have quit. It was very hard, but I knew with my family history of brain deterioration that I needed to push myself and my cognitive reserves. And I hung in there until it became more of a flow for me and a gift for me, something that I absolutely love and savor. But it was hard. And I say that because so many people quit early because it gets complicated somewhat, but you want that. You want to force the brain, because in learning these things that are contrary to the rote exercise that we develop in America, to stretch the brain literally enhances our cognitive reserve. And we want that over time to keep learning new things and practices and integrative mind body health practices. So and to engage and to stretch. Also to learn new complex skills, hobbies, activities. It can be something good. I recently started taking acrylic painting and I absolutely love it. And, I'm on the short bus again because that's something that I never did, but I absolutely love it. And I want to keep it up. And just always doing something new that stretches us. And we also know that for good brain health is participating, having a good spiritual community and participating in that community on a regular weekly basis. It's one of the 7 principles of health and wellness and happiness, is having some kind of a community that we engage in that helps feed our soul, which increases our immune function, our brain function, and our neurochemistry in our brain. So those are some things that we can do. It's, I suggest all of this stuff before we wait in line for that intravenous every 4 weeks. Sit down for an hour and hope that the new drug aducanumab, which gosh knows how expensive it's going to be. I don't know, might slow down that. Or we can use lifestyle interventions. And as with the Healer Within Foundation, that's all what we're about, really dedicated to bringing wellness into the world through mind-body practices, education, and awareness. And again, I welcome this opportunity to be a participant and a speaker educating the world through wellness. And that's the vision. It's a world of self-healing, wellness, and vitality. One of my greatest teachers, Dr. Roger Yanka, who founded the Healer Within Foundation and wrote 2 books and was the director of the Institute of IIQTC. That was his mission. That is his mission. That continues to be his mission. And there's a whole lot of us that are senior trainers now that we're continuing all of that work together as a huge, much greater community in the world. So I thank you for that and this opportunity. All right, like I said, if you want the handouts, sign up through the healerwithinfoundation.org, and you can have the written version of this. There is also a 2-page test where you can kind of see a little bit about where you might be with your own food and nutrition awareness. And again, it's just an awareness, but you can be proactive with that. And I suggest that people take it. It tells you how to score it. It also gives you lots of the great resources that are out there today. And the package is full of goodies. So I encourage you to get that through them. 100%, if you do decide to donate, which we welcome the gifts because we continue to do this, 100% of the donations from this talk today and all of the talks that I do with them go directly to the foundation to continue its mission to create a world of self-healing, wellness, and vitality, and to empower us in ways that we have power over. Proactive participation in our own health, life, longevity, joy, and greatness. Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to do a short practice, just a little bit to close out. It'll just be maybe 15 minutes long because of time, but they're practices, again, that enhance the brain. The practices are what we learned in the IIQTC training, and I like to continue to give them to the world every chance that I can. All right, so stand up a little bit, get comfortable. I'm going to take my jacket off. I'm going to move back. If you need to run to the restroom really quick, please do that. Shake out whatever position you were in, move your shoulders or your legs, and get comfortable in a place where you can see me and hear me. And I'm going to step back as we continue to do a little bit of practices today. Okay. I will, just so you know this, I will close at the end with a meditation, just a quiet bow, and then they'll leave this on for just a few seconds afterwards, and that will be the close. I like to take people back down into themselves and not back up into their head. You've been in your head listening to me. I want to drop you down now into yourself and feel and boost that immune and really help increase that cognitive abilities and balance and all the great things that Qigong does for us in Tai Chi practices. Okay. All right. So we'll start with the 3 intentful corrections. We're going to align. Posture is so important, and I believe in these practices. So we're going to put our feet shoulder width apart. Feel our big toe, our little toe, the ball of our foot, the heel. Relax our knees. And I like to say, point our tailbone to the ground or lift up so that your pelvic bowl is carrying this delicious fruit, if you will, and you're more balanced in your hip area. Okay. Then lengthen your spine. Lengthen the back of your neck so that you see me, or if some of you just want to hear my words, you can look down slightly. You want to not have your head up. That disconnects us, keeps us in our brain. You want to look forward or slightly down. Have the Tai Chi eyes, which are slightly closed, not completely open, but slightly closed. Soften your shoulders. Okay. As we said, lengthen our spine. Chin should be forward. And visualize a gold cord coming down from the heavens, going down into your head, and visualize that Tai Chi pole with roots rooting you from your feet into the earth. And then take a few slow, deep breaths, focusing in, breathing in through your nose, placing your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and breathing into your belly, all the way down. Slow, deep breath in, and also slow, deep breath out. Focus on 3 deep breaths, clearing our mind. And when you're ready, turn your palms up, rise your arms to your shoulder length, and then go down. Breathing slowly in as you go up, and slowly out as you go down. And then next one, I want you to close your eyes. The brain searches for more pathways when the eyes closed. So you're actually building cognitive reserve in a different way. And again. And one last time with your eyes closed. Feeling what you feel, noticing what you notice. And now I want you to open your eyes, and we're going to stay with the flowing motion. But when you come up, I want you to raise your heels. Again, this is creating more pathways in the brain and enhancing balance. And some people, when they do that, they'll wiggle a little bit, but you want to do this until you don't wiggle. So when you come up, bring your heels up. And when you turn your hands over, slowly go back down. And now to see where your balance is, this time when you come up, I want you to close your eyes and see if you're steady as you bring your feet up and down. So hands up and feet up. With your eyes closed. 2 more times, just really noticing what you notice. Is there a stability, or is the neurotransmission in your brain really trying to find that neuromuscular interface? And that's good. Keep doing it until it's easy. And one last time. And so because of time, we're going to go into this time, bring your hands up. We're going to go into the 10 phases. Remember your posture, your alignment. You're going to bring your hands to the middle. Feeling the ball of chi between your hands, discovering that chi. And then slowly open our arms and move down to gather from the earth and gather from the heavens. And again. If you know these moves, you can do them on your own with your eyes closed. Again, gather, bringing the energy of the earth into your heart center, and then gathering from the heavens, pulling the energy down. Now we're going to take this leg, your left leg, and you're going to make it the feet perpendicular to each other, and you're going to push out and come back and down. Come back. Push out, bring back, push down, come back up. One more time. Put our feet perpendicular or parallel again, and then Shift this one perpendicular, move to the other side, push out, come back, push down. Bring our feet parallel again. Now we're going to push out. We're going to purify the chi. Push out. Bring our hands back. Push up. Bring the energy back down. Push away from our hearts. Come back. Push down. I need to get a drink of water. Just keep going. Push out. Push up. Bring the energy back down. Push out. Push down. And this time we're going to direct the chi. We're going to bring up, come trace our meridians. Back behind our head, all the way down. The back of our legs, around our toes, up our thighs. And reach out to your left, my right. Go under, over. And the other side. And again, direct the chi. Tracing your meridians back behind your. And one last time. Now we're going to conserve the chi. Look into our lagoon. Bring your palm up. This time when you come to center, drop both palms. Scoop up. We're going to store the chi. showering ourselves with any extra energy. One more time, bringing that chi down into our being, and bring your hands to center, feeling the chi ball, and then slowly opening up your heart center, bringing your hands together again, slightly shifting, opening up your arms in this direction, transforming the chi. And then come to center, feeling the energy between your palms, or we call it the lagoon points. Letting any extra energy dissolve back into the universe. Slowly bringing your hands to prayer form and lifting them up to the heavens, making a huge heart, radiating out love and light and wellness and great cognitive health to all those around us. And one more time, transmitting the chi, the vitality, the health, the wellness. I thank you for this day, this opportunity to be a part of the Healer Within Foundation. Many blessings to all. And may you continue to feed and nourish not just your bodies, but your minds, your brains, and your health.